I had a major trauma. I was assaulted and then almost killed because I was hit by a motor vehicle going like
Mm,
60 miles per hour.
mhm,
I survived that. That's a big T. But what I would love to draw awareness with your listeners is awareness of the little T's and also the context
mhm.
of your trauma and how people around you respond. So I see a lot of people having secondary trauma from medical workers, from their family, because maybe their family doesn't know how to process their own grief and maybe blames them, shames them,
Yeah.
or maybe they're just emotionally unavailable.
Hello, my name's Naranjan, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast, learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Today is episode number 162, and I had the pleasure of talking to Dr. Allison Snowden, Master Theta Healing expert and founder of Awakening Institute, where they help people worldwide transform trauma and the subconscious blocks into freedom and abundance. Her own near death experience fuels her passion and mission to guide others to profound healing and spiritual awakening. Enjoy the conversation and thank you for watching and listening. Hello and welcome to Dr. Allison. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing amazing. Thank you for inviting me on this podcast. I'm so excited.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm curious to get more into learning about you, your experiences, and how you're moving forward with all these gifts, tools, and awarenesses that you've developed over the years from your own experiences of abusive and traumatic experience in your own interrelationships. So I'm
Yep,
curious to kind of unfold that without it tapping into too much of a heavier conversation, but rather giving people
definitely.
the opportunity to recognize where they can come out of from being
Yeah.
in that experiences. What are the opportunities? What are the potentials from all of that, right?
Well, yes, I think it is really important. I think there is a new type of healer and a new genre of embodied healers. And what I mean by that is people with lived experience. So I am definitely an academic. Like I've spent a long time in graduate school.
Yeah,
I love academia, but academia didn't heal my trauma.
right.
Academia, intellectual knowledge does not, it can help. I think it is a piece for you to understand and get some comfort, but that doesn't really deeply heal on a deep somatic, unconscious, subconscious level, the
Mhm.
healing that all people are craving. And I think also that, trauma, I feel like trauma is, this is a new buzzword, but it is very specific to the person and it's very contextual. And I always like to define trauma as something that was too overwhelming for the nervous system to process.
Mhm.
And so different people at different times can view a event as traumatic. Some things are globally traumatic. We call them big T's.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
big T's. Like I had a major trauma. I was assaulted and then almost killed because I was hit by a motor vehicle going like
Mhm.
60 miles per hour.
Mhm.
I survived that. That's a big T. But what I would love to draw awareness with your listeners is awareness of the little T's and also the context
Mhm.
of your trauma and how people around you respond. So I see a lot of people having secondary trauma from medical workers, from their family, because maybe their family doesn't know how to process their own grief and maybe blames them, shames them,
Yeah.
or maybe they're just emotionally unavailable.
Right.
And also another like so that's like one thing in the context of after you have something traumatic happen, an illness, a death, and people aren't there for you, that makes that trauma magnetize. And
Hmm.
actually, you the also I feel like the definition of trauma is disconnection shock from your body, from relationships, from the old paradigm that you used to live in. And you know what? With the whole pandemic, I feel like the whole world went through their own,
Trauma. Hmm.
trauma.
Hmm.
And that is really just like life as you know it is no longer exists,
Yeah.
right? And so I think all of us felt that to a certain extent. I think because I had been through like that whole scary part of like when your paradigm breaks and your reality breaks. I was pretty, I kind of had that, I had grappled with uncertainty my whole life just because of all of the medical stuff I had to deal with, and also with just having anxiety. So I almost befriended the uncertainty. Um,
Mm.
but I think like going back to your point of really, because things do happen in this world. People are victimized, and that doesn't have to be your identity.
Hmm.
And there are people that can help you through that. And also, some of the most amazing healers have come from the wounded space.
Right.
So I think a lot of how good I am at what I do is because I've walked through that territory myself with like a microscope, and I know the little nuances of it and I can see it in others. And once you've healed something, you can see different things in others.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think we have to recognize the victimization because a lot of our culture doesn't validate victims. They actually gaslight them into blaming
Hmm.
them. I see
Right.
this, I mean, there's a long history of that.
Yeah.
And that is a trauma. And then what happens is people get stuck in that being gaslit by society, their family, or an abusive partner or an abusive, actually, like, work situation
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So
True.
that can get you stuck in that fight flight mode and kind of recycling those loops. However, there is like another way.
Hmm. Hmm. There's always another way.
Yeah.
There's always another way, but it depends on the individual of how courageous they are to take the other way. I always
Yeah.
say we always have choices. There's always a choice in life, but both of the choices may not be as rosy and easy as we anticipate or as we desire or as we believe about ourselves. It's not as easy as that, but that's the whole part of the process is to be so uncomfortable that we get to make a choice that makes us so uncomfortable, but we know the growth from that is going to be even bigger. We
I
know
got
that.
chills when you said that. I got chills when you say that. So I'm like, whenever I feel like the chills, I'm like, okay, we need to go the growth. So I
Yeah,
think growth is uncomfortable,
absolutely.
and I think you have to befriend uncomfortable uncertainty and instead of fearing it, embrace it.
Yeah,
And I think understanding why our ego is afraid of something, or understanding, intellectually, I'm sure, like how make people make decisions, you know, that could be a whole podcast.
that's
But
right. Yeah.
I think with really going with, you know, designing, I think only amazing things can come from your healing. And I think sometimes our ego or our programs, our subconscious patterns, our wounds sometimes get in the way of our growth because maybe our brain fears it and feels like we're going to die. But really, I guess, like also that is a part of growth. Part of you is dying and a new part of you is emerging. So
Ultimately.
I think like getting used to this creation destruction cycle as a person, as a soul, and this this life cycle that only the only thing that's constant is that change.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm. Hmm. And that's a natural process of life that we somewhat dismiss because the death and a rebirth of self is inevitable. We
oh
see
yeah,
that in our cells of children. We don't, even though we were 5, 6, 7 years old, we don't identify as that. So there's that
yeah,
natural process of that part of us is is no longer with us, or we've grown from it, or we've grown out of it, or it is calling to um, gain more information and insight in who we are. So there is that natural death and rebirth in who we are, even if it's down to the day that we lost or the day that has passed from yesterday.
yeah, yeah. And I think that, I think with the ego, that's our identity. That is, and we need a healthy ego. And also, I
Yeah.
think what we also need to embrace, and what I've embraced, is really the spiritual path,
Hmm.
of inevitable growth, rebirth, all of that. And also,
Right.
what choice, I always am like, what choice scares me the most, but also what choice is like my ultimate, you know, passion and deep desire. And I think sometimes we are conditioned by other people's opinions. I feel like,
Huge.
especially in Western world, advice column, it's like we've outsourced our advice to everyone else. And that's fine to get people's opinion because I feel like I mentor women. I also have people who mentor me. But at the end of the day, it's like, a good teacher, and also what I do with my theta healing programs and my medical intuitive programs is ultimately I'm teaching you to tap back into yourself,
Hmm.
and I'm
Hmm.
guiding and we're healing each other. But ultimately, especially for women, I don't know how it is with men, but for women, when we've healed all the different layers of conditioning and trauma or abuse and neglect that has happened, and many of us don't realize it. And so just because you don't realize it doesn't mean it's not vibrating in your body, because your body
Hmm.
remembers everything.
Hmm.
So I see, like, you were talking about how like we don't no longer identify with, our 7 or 6 year old, but in my practice and also in my understanding and I feel like expertise about the human body anatomy, and also like how the psyche works, and then also understanding that people also have a consciousness that is their soul,
Hmm.
that is eternal, and
Hmm.
how all of these aspects work together. What happens is we are very heavily influenced from 0 to 6, and very much many of the things that are heavily guiding us, a lot of
Hmm.
them could be good. But if you had some abuse or neglect or anything like that, there's stories and narratives and belief systems that could be unconsciously guiding you,
Yeah.
and you don't understand. And so it's like,
Sure.
how can you fix something that you're not conscious of? And that's why most people come in to see me. They're women are, if you are overwhelmed, if you're constantly in the past or the future, if you are doubting yourself, if these are all symptoms of like either like just unresolved trauma, or there's a
Hmm.
distrust in self, or a
Hmm.
misalignment inside you.
Hmm. Hmm. So, with the path that you've been on and the journey in your own self-healing of your own awareness and the experiences that you've had, what has that taught you about yourself? And does it define who Allison is right now?
Like Um, I think that is it's such a good question. Thank you for that. Because I think and I'm gonna take this note, like, because I want to write more on this, because, you know, the survivor journey is you don't want to you want to progress, right? You
Hmm.
want to
Hmm.
progress through life, through the different stages. But what happens when we don't have what we need, or we don't have the healing techniques? We get kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And so I think I got stuck, and rightfully so. I'm not, blaming anyone who's ever gotten stuck, because being stuck in something is like you don't have what you need to move forward.
Yeah.
And for me, that was this technique that helped me through the deeper layers so I could actually move forward. So I think I right now am more open to life in the past 5 years, to just really filling up my life, because when you are a survivor or when you're dealing with chronic illness, that becomes your life.
Yeah.
You know, like okay, so like I have to go, how many years did I spend being like a professional patient?
Hmm.
I had to learn how to walk 6 times. Just had over like, I lost count, like 10, 11 orthopedic surgeries. And then after that, it was just anxiety. And so I had a hard time being present to
Hmm.
myself
Hmm.
and present with others. I think that is the most, um, I think, if you can't be present to yourself, you can't be present to others. And so really it's almost like when you haven't healed from trauma, it's like a part of you is like not available.
Hmm.
It's like it's stuck.
Hmm.
Um, so I never thought I would feel so good, like
Hmm.
physically, mentally, emotionally. And it took a lot of effort for me. But I always say with my clients and my students, if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Sure,
And
sure.
I really want to inspire people to do that, because like I was, well, I couldn't, I was bedridden for a long time. Then I had some emotional trauma abuse just through the medical system, through the culture, because our culture doesn't know how to handle trauma and abuse, or you know things that scare people, or
Hmm.
and so in their reaction, when you're vulnerable, you really internalize a lot of these things.
Hmm. Hmm. Life
And a
will
lot
do
of
that. Hmm.
Yeah, and a lot of people, especially with emotional abuse, like, and there are people who, a lot of people, I mean, I think in our culture in the States, and especially in medicine, if you can't see it, it's not there, you
Right.
know. And the thing is the research, I want to validate everyone that, just getting people up to the research, is that adverse events, if like actually hurt our nervous system, and not to disempower people, but like that what doesn't kill you make you stronger, that can be true. And I like that because that gives you power and motivation. However, the research in kids, so if you had an adverse childhood, and you can see the studies, it's called the ACE studies.
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
this puts you at a higher correlation for all chronic disease.
Yes.
So this is somewhat reflecting the more adversity you have, emotional, all these different things, that primes you
Hmm.
for disease.
Yeah.
And what I'm really excited about is really reversing that, because I had had so much emotional trauma and physical things were showing up.
Hmm.
And I'm like, this is, and I healed it through emotional healing.
Hmm.
So just because you have a pain in your body doesn't mean there's something physical wrong with you.
Right.
Your mind and your body are deeply interwoven. And if you're not paying attention to your inner world, and there's very few, the majority, I think, of people, if they didn't have parents who were highly attuned, secure, then they aren't very highly attuned, secure in their world. So,
Right.
that's generational trauma. And your parents can do the best and love you and show up and still be human and still have that impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It all works together in this massive web called life,
It
and the
is.
experiences that we get to have as human beings because we signed up for this.
Yeah. And yeah, and so like I think the most beautiful thing about the healing journey is I feel like I've grown spiritually, emotionally, and I think, there are some things that, you know, uh, you usually in medicine and in psychology, or in, we don't bring in God, we don't bring in the soul, but being a near-death experiencer and seeing the other side and witnessing it and then coming back, that is like a deep fabric of who I
Hmm.
am,
Hmm. Hmm.
because that that experience was more real than this like world, like
Yeah.
because it was so it completely shifted me. So everything I experience and invite in my life, I'm like, I want spiritual growth, you know. And I think like in America especially, there's this wave of manifesting your best life and all of that stuff, and I'm all for that, and I'm for great experiences. But also, we came to experience contrast. And also, sometimes getting to your best life maybe be a harder road, but it is really what your soul is maybe craving, you know?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I came here to like deeply understand. And so it's just interesting when you change your perspective
Hmm.
and and what you value, then how you interpret, certain events.
Hmm.
Events aren't bad, good, whatever. It's really the story and
Yeah.
the narrative you have.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to question ourselves and be curious of, why do I think that this is bad or good? Or why do I think this is dot, dot, dot? Well, usually it's, our ego and our body does not want to experience pain and wants to experience pleasure and wants to stay safe.
Right.
However, growth is, we don't know. And our physical brain doesn't like the unknown. So
That's
there's
right.
an inherent check and an inherent resistance
Yeah.
already within the physiology of our body.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What made you decide to choose this as a career path for you? So, how can you define that this is an element or at this stage of your life, a calling for what you need to do right now?
Well, so I really think so when I was younger, because it's been 1999 was when the big T happened and my near-death experience, and I was in just my whole left side was broken. I got through all of the physical surgeries and people were like, okay, you're healed. And I was like, what? And so I was going to providers and doctors. I was like, they don't know shit.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, like they don't know
Mm-hmm.
anything. And they're kind of looking at me like, I don't know what, like you're lucky to be alive. And I'm like, I know this, but like I want to, like, I don't want to suffer like for the rest of my life, like mentally or physically. Help me. And because I was such like a very rare, like very extreme case, like I kind of got like doctors were like, all right, we could try. And then I just was going to all of these different doctors, healers. Some people were like, just accept you're going to be in pain. And I was like, no, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to be in pain. This is like, there has to be a way. There has to be a way. So I started going to all these doctors. Then I'm like, oh, well, I'll just go to school. So my career was mirroring my healing. So
Yeah.
um, I think I was just born to be a healer and a teacher. And I think no one cares about how you feel and your health more than yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was not impressed. There were some amazing people along the way that like just I just like feel so blessed. There's been so many beautiful people along the way that have guided me on my path, and just so grateful for that. And I was like, you know what? Like if I'm going through this, then there's a ton more people,
Sure.
and no one has, like I had never met someone who had been through that and had fully healed.
Right.
And I was like, this can be done, but I haven't seen it. And I've seen people who've survived, but they were suffering, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was like, I think I and other people who've had, really, seen the darkness of humanity, how dark they can be. I think we have just as much of a right as other people and more to really feel safe and loved and happy in our life. And so basically, I was just on that mission throughout my whole career. So I went to undergrad, went to massage school, got yoga teacher training, meditation training, then got my master's and my doctorate in Chinese medicine, then did all of this functional medicine because I wanted to understand physiology because
Mm-hmm.
we are, the thyroid, hormones, that all affects how we feel.
Mm-hmm.
However, I got all of this training and spent all this money in academia and all these different things just to hit a plateau in my own healing. And I'm like, okay, like none of my tools, none of the mind body techniques I've done are really, there's a resistance in my body to go to the next level of
Mm-hmm.
healing. And so I did a theta healing class and I I was like, oh, this is the technique. This is like because I felt this alignment within me. It was like a sensory knowing and of just what it felt like when I was in, with that when I crossed over into heaven or into that consciousness of God. And I felt that in my system. And I was like, I have to, so I did that, the classes. And then I got just fully trained and I kept on working on my own healing. Because if you've gone
Yeah.
through years of trauma, medical trauma, or emotional abuse, or even neglect, I definitely want to highlight that because a lot of people I think they know when someone is abusing them
Right.
and that it's not right. But I think some of the people that are have the hardest time is people that are like, nothing did happen to me. Like my parents were, tried hard. They worked, several jobs. They didn't like hit me or abuse me. And so it's like it's not it's like what didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel
Mm-hmm.
like some of the people like emotional neglect. So that's just being in tune with the child
Yeah.
um, is more common than we know, and a lot of people are in denial about it. And a lot of times these people are like, I don't have the right to be feeling the feelings that I'm feeling.
Right.
And and a lot of these amazing souls come to me and they have all these physical problems. But really it was like the only way they got attention when they were younger was when they were hurt or sick. And so
Mm-hmm. Ultimately.
unconscious,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Ultimately, that's a pretty organic and natural space of how am I going to get attention?
Yeah, and isn't it interesting? Like I find it really interesting that there's, you know, I don't know, in the space of Midwest or America culture, oh, she's doing it for attention. It's like, well, like, is there this denial that we all deserve and need attention and attunement? And actually, if we don't get it, it is like we are social beings.
Mm-hmm.
So there is, when someone says
Mm-hmm.
that, there's like
Mm-hmm.
this belief system of, oh, like that is wrong. It's like, well, you know, our we all have basic human needs and we get them either unconsciously, subconsciously, how we got them when we were younger. And a lot of times we go back to that if we're not getting our needs met. And so, but like it's not, but it's a very interesting space because I can remember when my pain kept on coming back. Like my
Right.
bones were healed, but my pain keep on coming
Of
back.
course. Yeah. The memory
And I
of
was
it.
like,
Absolutely.
but I think there's the energy that I really want to like share like with your listeners that really was the only energy that moved forward was acceptance and also like releasing that anger towards myself or that anger or frustration towards my body because and that's very common with people who haven't gotten the support because if there's not a safe space for you to get justice or to have your anger outside, a lot of times it gets turned inward,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and people get angry at their body for not functioning, and then that just puts you deeper down. So the energy of loving your body, accepting where you're at, and moving on that is like even if it's a little bit each day, like is progress.
Mm-hmm.
And And so just like the my desire for healing and balance, just mind, body, spirit, and not from like a faked perspective, right?
Hmm.
Like I think we've all been in that thing where you're like, oh, think positive or whatever, but you really feel like shit. And you really are going through dark emotions. And so I had to really learn how to embrace that
Yeah.
and be and look at it because it's like we can't shove those things down. However, with that said, because we live in this complex system called the human body and the human
Mhm.
nervous system, sometimes you know uh like things come up, we attract or our programming pulls in chronic disease or an abusive relationship or a workspace that mirrors like our childhood or mirrors a trauma that we haven't processed. So sometimes that's, I call it a healing opportunity. And well, actually, everything's a healing opportunity,
Okay.
you know? And and so just inviting and being like, I feel like with especially with women, we've been so programmed out of our intuition, out of our safety, and really like reconnecting to the love of your body and yourself, even if it's, even if it's not perfect, just doing it a little bit because your body like will heal so much more by you loving it. And it is your human right to love your body. But obviously, especially in the West, we get programmed with, all of these other
Yeah.
things of how we're less than. And so I feel like there is just a lack of self-love and then an inability, like I want to love myself, but I keep on, you know, having behaviors or thoughts or actions that sabotage me. And I think with just to you think of self-sabotage as you have a conscious desire, but you stop, you block it, you push away love, you push away, going for whatever you want, speaking up. And what I see is women shaming themselves, beating themselves up.
Hmm. Hmm.
And really it's we're humans, so just stopping and saying like I like love you, like myself, like all that's going on, and let's go deeper and find out what if you are wanting something and unconsciously or consciously blocking it, there's a program, there's a trauma, there's something
That's
within
right.
you
Ultimately.
that it's like
Hmm.
it's not safe. So
Yeah.
it's like I think sometimes it's scary to go through trauma, but then also it's scary to be in to like you get so used to being in pain when I'm bringing people that have been in chronic pain. It's almost like the body's like, this is like the unknown. Is it safe to
Right.
feel pain free? Because the last time my body felt pain free was right before something horrific happened to me.
Right.
So
Right.
and of course that's not logical, but guess what, guys? Your subconscious and your emotions
Hmm.
are what drives everything.
It is.
And and if you want to change that, you have to go deep and reprogram yourself. But I just feel people just, it's like the shame, blame, punishment mentality that, probably a lot of people were brought up with, and also kind of what our society does too. Instead of
So,
being, yes, yeah.
so having said that, what are the top three attributes that you have embodied for yourself that connect you to staying on track for you?
I think the embodiment is safety, like
Hmm.
safety within my own nervous system. And that took me, and I always tell my clients or students, I was like, that took me a long time to achieve. And people shouldn't be like mm, like that could be shocking or like disappointing or whatever, like that sometimes deep healing takes a little bit longer than what we want,
Sure, of course.
shorter.
We live in a world of instant gratification, so it's inevitable for us to be patient with ourselves, right?
Yes.
So safety, what are the other attributes?
I think safety and then just self-love.
Hmm.
And in order to achieve that, or at least being on the path to that, because that took me years of developing that, and that is normal, especially if you've gone through harsher experiences, and that self-love, that within myself,
Hmm.
and that I can approach myself with love, and also I have a choice to choose that for myself.
Right.
Um, and I think the third one is just
Yeah.
willingness and courage, because I think even like, you know, even when, okay, once you achieve, like, I never thought I would, like, someone asked me, what is the most thing you're most proud of? And I said, um, really my soul and me, like being in my body and handling little stresses without getting overwhelmed, and or just being like in a relaxed state and feeling safe within my nervous system. That is my biggest accomplishment, because guess what? I accomplished a PhD. I started and ran and sold businesses, but I was not embodied. I was not connected. I was still suffering horrifically. And so I
Hmm.
think it's really having the courage to like be honest with yourself, and also to change and be
Hmm.
okay, giving yourself permission to change, but also that like our internal state and our heart are our biggest compass.
Yeah.
And we need to really know that, because, and also like that like feeling safe to be misunderstood,
Right. Yeah.
and people, and also like and that takes courage, because we are programmed to, especially as women, especially as like open-hearted empathetic women, I think that's been the hardest lesson, because I want people to understand me. I want to understand them, but like some people aren't there for that.
Hmm.
And I think that's just also letting go of control
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
and reclaiming your sovereignty and safety within.
Hmm.
And I think all of us, all of us on this planet, we all have, we have our external lives, but also we are all going through like a metamorphosis in on the spiritual level. And we can, and especially at this time, I just feel it. We can choose to like change and like be uncomfortable on purpose to facilitate growth, or like life can, or you can stay the same and resist it, and either chronic disease or something. Like I just feel like in the energy of this time in the world is like growth, and it's like it's going to happen, and it's like you can choose how it's going to happen. But a lot of us, of course, like in the beginning, we are so scared that a lot of times it's a shock, it's a diagnosis, it's a loss that puts us on the spiritual path.
Hmm.
And I think also like there are a lot of people, especially women, who have deep gifts, intuitive gifts, healing gifts that haven't been really recognized by society, because it's always been dominated by science, 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 science. And I love science, and I'm a research nerd, and I read research all the time. And our hearts, and the consciousness and the presence of who you are is some of the most potent technology on this planet.
Hmm.
And it cannot be really replicated by a machine. And I love machines, I love technology, and we've really lost the power of the human heart and the power of your presence, your attention. And also, as you heal yourself, like it's like the law of vibration, your own personal healing, and maybe some people won't like it, but on the superficial level, but like that is like vibrating through, and it has deep profound shifts in people even without you knowing it.
Yeah. Yeah. But coming full circle from our conversation,
Mhm.
it's for individuals to be aware and be courageous to recognize it's ultimately for them to do their own work.
Yes, and they don't have to do it alone because, you know,
Absolutely.
like I
Absolutely.
think when we've been hurt by other humans, there's this instinct to, and I've been there, like it's like, ow, like I don't want to get hurt again. So it's like if anyone in your audience has been hurt, especially from a healing professional,
Mhm.
like I'm so sorry and validate that. Some people are not trained and humans are humans. So just sending love to that. And guys, like sometimes this your pain and the scariest thing in your life could be an opening to your biggest purpose. And so seeing what is in front of you, what is there, and some of my best healers I've trained, like they came to me first for healing, and then it opened up this whole new world where they're like, oh my God, when you fully heal, like at a deep, deep level, you're like, I want this for everyone else. And you want to be a portal, a teacher, a friend that like facilitates that deep healing. So I feel like there's this very subtle but deep like evolution and revolution at like the love consciousness level that is just permeating because every time we hold a boundary or say no to something that, is not good for us. That's like a vibration. We're healing ourselves, but we're also healing everyone. We're so interconnected with everyone and everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We always have been and we always will be. But it's been courageous enough to look at it and to identify ourselves within that piece of this massive puzzle that we get to play with. So,
Yeah. And I think it's important for just like when I'm talking because I'm a big patient advocate because I was a patient long before I was, a provider, a doctor, a teacher. So I always empower each client, each student, when you're looking for a teacher or a healer, ask questions. And sometimes we don't know what questions to ask. So just asking them, what is your, what is your expertise? What is your style? Are you trauma informed? Have you had personal experience with dot dot dot? Because I feel that when we're vulnerable, sometimes we're just, we don't know how to ask the right questions and really just listening to your gut. If someone makes you feel safe and comfortable, like going with that, because I have been with, very like Ivy League trained doctors who had all the accolades, but like they didn't have the embodied experience on an energetic level, on a somatic level. They had not mastered that. They had the intellectual knowledge, but they didn't have that. And I really feel that that is so important. And I would love to learn how to measure that. I don't know how it's measured, but it's a sense, right? You're like, and remember to like honor that sense.
yeah,
And yeah.
yeah, absolutely. There's so much more that we can delve into in this, Alison. I'm sure there is.
Oh, always.
Always. The universe is infinite, as is our experiences that we get to have and we choose to embark on and engage with. So, thank you for sharing your experiences that have taken you on such a long trajectory of healing not only yourself, but also supporting others on their growth and journey too. So, thank you for sharing your stories. I appreciate you and honor you in all that you're doing for others to support others one to one, but also on a vibrational, energetic level. So, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing so much. Thank you,
And thank
Allison.
you so much. I just love your energy. And I feel like your energy just really like signifies like in our world, everyone's gotten so loud and it's just like I feel like your energy and like the embodied feminine, the it's like that gentle power is like really like I feel that within you. And I feel that that is like the deep soul power that all of us are cultivating through different life experiences and that all of us have and we
Mm-hmm.
can at any time tap into. And
Mm-hmm.
I just love that because like like I just really appreciate that because you like that. I just feel this just like very much the deep soul power within you and this gentleness. But this gentleness is from a power and a
Yeah.
kindness. And I just like want to reflect that because
Thank you.
I just think in our world, everyone is trying to scream over each other. And it's just
Yeah.
like, I'm
Yeah.
just like, is anyone else done with this? Can we
Yeah.
just elevate to like honoring and respecting and taking a deep breath? But that requires like safety within ourselves. And unfortunately, like we're all like people who act like that, they're going through their own
Yeah.
stuff.
Thank you for sharing that, Allison. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.